to you. Ousmane Diallo obtained his teaching certificate in 2000 and teaches in Louga, Senegal. Committed to his school community, he helped position the Teacher Association Regional Branch among the outstanding ones. He was voted Teacher of the Year and President of ATES, the Teacher Association, Louga in 2016. He participated in the 2019 Fulbright program. Ousmane Diallo, we will be listening to you in order to entertain us with the use of UDL for more inclusive planning. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Hi, everyone.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hi, everyone.
I can hear you.
I am
Hi,
very
Ousmane.
honored.
How are you?
Fine, first, thank you. I'm very honored today to participate in the second edition of West Africa TESOL virtual conference. I thank the committee organizers of this big event, okay, which give us the opportunity to meet people from different countries. It's a wonderful initiative. Okay, my topic today is understanding the UDL framework for more inclusive planning. Well, my interest in inclusive training is a bit related to my personal experience. I remember some years back in my career, I had some students with physical disabilities in my class. One was a dwarf and another one had serious physical disability. They had difficulties to come to school, okay, to enter the class and so on. Well, this partly motivated my my auditing a course in special education when I was given the opportunity. So roughly speaking, this is how I landed to, I got to be interested in the UDL framework. Well, if you look at this picture, you can see two classroom settings, okay? And I don't know which one you would like to evolve as a teacher. But it is telling, and maybe we'll come back to it later. You have two types of classroom here, and they speaks a lot in terms of teaching methods that we're going to see today. Well, this is my sorry. So the participants to this Zoom will understand the variety of UDL teaching method. They will provide the student with access, support, and challenges. They will also meet the need of each student in their classroom accordingly, but also they will be knowledgeable about the UDL resource, which are available in this website that is GAST, okay? So this is the objective, the learning outcome, okay? Sorry. Okay, so we assume that UDL is promoting the diversity in learning, that the curriculum should be flexible. And the goal of UDL is to engage learners, okay, to challenge and support all of them. So we see that UDL is inclusive by design, okay? It is an inclusive approach that, okay, does not leave any child behind, any learner behind. Okay. Okay, so this is a definition by Amanda Morin from Underwood. They say universal design for learning gives all the students an equal opportunity to succeed. This approach to teaching and learning offers flexibility in the way students access material and show what they know. It also looks for different ways to keep students motivated. So we understand the universal aspect of UDL. So UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, is an approach to curriculum that minimize barriers and maximize learning. It is very important. Okay, in designing lessons, for example, what we should have at the back of our mind is to minimize as much as possible the barriers that our students are supposed to meet in order to maximize learning. Okay. Okay. How did UDL came into being? Okay. UDL is the universal design is a concept that is originated in the field of architecture. Okay. Now, and it was transferred to pedagogy, because the idea was to create products and spaces, okay, that could be used by anyone, no matter your age, your ability, or your status. Okay. Now, the feature of this building, okay, in architecture are known for their flexibility, the possibility to accommodate all users. Okay, buildings are well thought out in such a way that they can really accommodate any types of users, be they, okay, people with physical disability or normal person. So it is about, okay, being smart before starting. Okay, this was, so the idea of universal design for learning was inspired from, okay, architecture. Okay, now let's look at the difference that we can make between UDL and the traditional way of teaching, the way we're teaching. Okay, if you take UDL, you have teaching that focuses on how objectives can be met, whereas in traditional teaching, you have teaching that focuses on what is taught. You take UDL, you have content. The content is most of the time accessible to all learners, whereas in the traditional teaching, the content is accessible to most students, not all the students. Whereas in teachers work with the student to decide how student will learn the material, in the traditional teaching, the teacher decides how the material is taught. Okay, grades are used to reinforce goal in UDL, whereas grades are used to measure performance. So we see the differences. If with the UDL, okay, teaching is horizontal, okay, in traditional teaching, the teaching is vertical. But they say the teacher is the Mr. Know-it-all. So as I mentioned a while ago, UDL is about being smart from the start. It is about having the end in mind right from the start. And we see research show that the way people learn is as different as their fingerprints. What does it mean to a teacher, or how should teacher understand that? Well, it means that classrooms are highly diverse. We have to know that. And curriculum need to be designed from the start to meet this diversity. When planning your lesson, for example, you have to think deep in order to take into account all the possible barriers that your learners might encounter. Okay. Now let's try and unpack, okay, the concept UDL. Universal, we might think about the universe, but it is not about this. It is about the curriculum that can be used and understood by everyone. We should make sure that the curriculum can be used and understood by everyone. Is it really the case most of the time? Okay, we have curriculum, but sometimes we see that they lack in flexibility in order to help. And we keep on teaching this curriculum. It's a question. Each learner in the classroom brings his or her background, strength, need, or interest. So the curriculum should provide genuine learning opportunity for each student. Okay. If you take the learning, the term learning in UDL, neuroscience tells that our brain has three broad networks: recognition, which means the what of learning, the skills and strategy, the how of learning, and the why of learning is related to the caring and the fact of caring and prioritizing. What does it mean? It means that the student need to gain knowledge, skills, and enthusiasm for learning, and only the curriculum needs to help them do all the three, that is say recognition, skill and strategies, and for caring and prioritizing. Okay, and last but one, about the concept, you have design. Design goes beyond the access, like the architecture. Now, it is about supporting, it is about challenging. Okay, so we see how comprehensive, how inclusive that UDL is. It was first, okay, designed in order to accommodate users and so on. But now we think about the student and we try to support them and to challenge them in their learning. Okay, what do we learn from that? We learn from this that one size fits all fits no one. Okay, no, one size does not fit all because every learner is unique and different. So what works for one may not work for another. So we have to take this into account when designing our lesson. We have to pay more attention about the diverse learners that we have in our classes in order to better serve our learners. And UDL is here to help us do this, do it this way. So what is my goal as a teacher who is really putting into practice the guidelines of UDL? Okay, my goal is to determine what I want my student to be able to know, to care about and do. Okay, I have to reflect on the patterns of student struggle, the barrier that might be hindrances, okay, towards knowledge acquisition. I have to consider ways to insert flexibility to ensure access for all, okay, to knowledge. Okay, so it boils down to saying that my goal is about fitting all differently. As this quotation clearly illustrates, barriers to learning are not, in fact, inherent to are not inherent in the capacity of learners, but instead arise in the learner's interaction with inflexible educational goal, material, methods, and assessment. So we tend to blame our students most of the time, but do we pay attention to the learning environment, the curriculum that we're using, the method, the assessment method that we're using? All this, we need to pay attention to that before really putting the blame on the student. And that's why UDL is here to bring us, to show us, to give us some guideline that if we abide by them, could help us really be more mindful about lots of things relating to our student. Okay, so UDL for learning is about building flexibility at each point in the lesson, from the input, that is say the representation, the process, the how, and the product, and the why of learning. It's about maximizing the students' learning, but also it's about using the evolving technology. Okay, the assistive technology is not UDL, but it is part of it. It is part of it. It complements, okay, the UDL. Okay. So here is the guideline proper. Okay, you have 3 principles. You have multiple means of representation, multiple means of action and expression, multiple means of engagement. And there is a keyword, which is multiple, that you can see in all 3. Okay, it is absolutely telling. It means that if we help the student have access to learning, we are really showing, we're making our courses very inclusive. And this is how things work, because no learner should be left behind. We should take them into account. And if we follow this guideline, we are sure to find the solution to each problem that constitute a hindrance, okay, towards student acquisition of the knowledge. Okay. Now let's look at the what of learning. It relates to the content or the input. Okay. Here we provide multiple examples, highlight critical features, use multiple multi-modal format, support background knowledge. What does it mean? It means that learners, they differ, okay, in the way in which they perceive and comprehend, okay, the way information is represented to them, okay? So we have to diversify, we have to use multiple representation of, okay, of the information. So you have it here, the multiple means of representation. We provide multiple ways for students to access content, highlight critical features, provide examples, okay, activate the background knowledge of the student, okay, and consider multiple formats, okay, and modes, okay. Okay, you have the how of learning, let's say the process, let's say how to engage the student, okay. For this also, you need to use multiple, okay, means of engagement, from supporting strategic learning, providing multiple opportunity, giving ongoing feedback and relevant feedback. You have also, okay, so you have the second, the how, the multiple ways to engage, the lesson process, the fact of offering choice for how students will engage in the lesson, the fact of offering adjustable level of challenge, the fact of providing opportunity for natural support and apprenticeship, okay? And last but one, you have the outcome of learning, that is say the product, okay? What can students do with what has been learned so far, okay? How they can express themselves, okay? Okay, using all that preceded, okay? It's about providing choice to the student, okay? Giving them something that is related to their everyday life, real life situation, being authentic, okay? So adjusting the level of challenge. Okay. So you have, okay. So the multiple means of action and expression, it is the stage of creation, basing on what they have learned so far.
7 minutes to the end. 7 minutes to the end.
Thank you. Okay. So to sum up here, you have the engagement, the expression. How is information or content presented or shared? How will the student engage or interact with content? And how students demonstrate what they know? This is a summary of, and to illustrate UDL, I have like this picture, okay? You see, if there was interaction, I would ask you to tell me, why isn't this, okay, a fair selection? Because you give all these animals one assignment, okay, knowing that their abilities are not the same, okay? The ability they have when it comes to climbing a tree, they're not the same, so they cannot do the same thing, okay? If the fish is good at, okay, swimming, such is not the case with the elephant, and so on and so forth. So this is a good representation of what we mean behind the idea, about the idea that is behind UDL. This also is a theory of learning that perfectly illustrates, okay, UDL. We have to know that we have students who have different learning styles in our classrooms, and therefore they cannot be given the same thing, okay, and we cannot expect them to learn them the same way. So it's all about diversifying what we're teaching, what we're giving them, giving different input, okay, in order to maximize, okay, learning, okay, finding different way of engaging the student, okay, and finding different way of assessing them also. I will finish by by saying that the mere physical placement of students in general education and assigning of an aid does not comprehensively address the need, support, and accommodation required by law and common sense. What I understand here is the call for a paradigm shift in our context where, okay, the learning condition do not, okay, help teachers or and students to be taken into account, okay, when it comes to designing lessons, okay, because we have to bear in mind that, okay, student needs to be given opportunity to succeed, and for this to differentiate, and in certain conditions it is not easy to differentiate, okay. If you look at the picture, it's a bit telling, okay, it's a bit telling. It is far away from what UDL is expecting us to do. So since we are running out of time, here is a kind of activity that I would like to do, but I'm afraid it won't be possible. You have here some question and discussion. Learners with or without vision challenges, can access the information through audio version provided by the screen reader. If you take, for example, this sentence, okay, or this question, no, sorry. You have text with screen readers, video with transcript and closed caption or hard copy in a class for learners with vision challenges. For example, if you had this in your class, which one would you choose in order to answer to the UDL question? Okay, what would you choose? Okay, I give you the answer. For example, learner with or without vision challenges can access information through the audio version provided by the screen reader. What do I mean here? That we need to put technology at the service of our student, because even if this technology is for students with vision challenges, it is also good for learners without vision for challenges, especially in our context where the student, they read a text without understanding the text. So it would be a good way to help them by giving them, okay, audio version of text for them to be familiar with the English language, okay? Because many of them have missed their foundational skills. So I think that it is a method that is worth using. So, I will end up with the second, closed caption for hearing impaired learners, okay? Why should we use this? And you have here the answer, okay? Because hearing impaired or other learners can use closed caption to comprehend the audio content. It is just an invitation. It is, wow. So, hello?
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 Hello, hello?
Hello? I can
Yes.
hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Go on, Ousmane.
But I don't see, I can't see any image.
Any image come? Who is speaking? Ousmane?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? I no longer see you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you see me now?
So, yes. So roughly speaking, this is what I wanted to share with you today, hoping that you will learn something from it. And if you have any question, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ousmane, for this brilliant presentation. We do really appreciate it. Thank you for this. It is crystal clear, useful, and thank you of making us make the difference between anything using UDL. And also we know
my problem is I have lost my screen. They come up? I have lost my screen. What's the
Which
problem? I have
screen?
lost my screen. Yes.
Can you stop sharing?
Yes, I stopped it.
Oh, is Virginia around?
Okay, it's okay. It's okay. It seems
It's
to be
okay.
okay.
Okay,
Yes.
even I myself,
Thank you.
I cannot see you, but we can carry on talking.
Anyway,
So
no problem.
thank you so much, and we have some questions coming from Telegram and Zoom. The first
Yes.
question in Zoom is, what are your thoughts on this lexica? It is from Mushinatu Ture. Let me go back to, you can go to the chat box, and if you scroll
Yes, the
above,
problem
you can
is
see.
I no longer see anything from here. Maybe
from here. What happened?
Yeah, I don't know.
You stop the sharing. Please, can you stop the sharing, because I still have your slide here.
You want me to stop?
Yes, so that you can see the questions.
Okay.
And
Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay
good.
now.
Okay.
Okay.
So let me see discussion from Sunatu.
Yes.
You can access the chat box.
Yes. Yes. Carry on. We both hear you.
Okay.
Yes. I'm waiting for you.
There is a question. Do we pay attention to learning environments before blaming students?
Sorry?
This is from Telegram. Do we pay attention to the learning environments before blaming students?
Definitely. Well, I think that we shouldn't blame the student. If we abide by the principle of UDL, we're not supposed to blame the student. It is up to us to find the solution to the problem that the student are facing, because the UDL framework is designed in such a way as there is always a possibility to find a solution to the problem that the student might face. And for this, we'll have to plan beforehand. We have to know our student and plan accordingly. Thank you.
Okay. So the other question is, should we focus on students' culture while using UDL?
Should we
focus on students' culture while using UDL?
Yes, because I think that the end goal in any teaching is to link what we're teaching in classroom with, okay, what the student is experiencing in real life, okay? It's about teaching students real life life skills. So I think that culture should be part and parcel of what we're teaching our students.
Okay. Okay, there is another question, but the text is a little bit long. Yes. So let me try to read it for you. It will take a little bit some time. Thank you, Ousmane. It is from
if you want, I can ask the question.
Yes, good. Mushinatu is around. Thank you so much. You can ask the question, Mushinatu.
So thank you, Ousmane, for the brilliant presentation.
Wow, thank you.
So I was just talking about the type of lexicon that we use in when referring to our learners. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
For example, I hear a lot like saying that these students are weaker than the others. These ones are more intelligent or smarter. And through the years, to be true that I was in the same, I used to say the same things in the past, but now I believe that those type of expressions are demotivating to students. Like when you tell someone that this group of students is more intelligent than the others, they will not make efforts. So I think what differentiates our learners is mainly their degree of engagement and motivation in the activities in classroom tasks. And it's our role as teachers to help them develop those that engagement and motivation. So I just wanted to have your input according to UDL, and your research, your input on those kind of lexicon words or phrases we can use to refer or differentiate our learners.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mushinatu. I feel that it's a relevant question, and that is really that does not go in line with UDL. I feel like UDL, if you understand the guideline, it is really it is enhancing learning for all students. Let's say we should not say that, okay, this student is weak. We should try to find what are the main causes, what are the barriers that are preventing him from learning. There's always a problem that is hiding, because you can have in your classes some invisible, okay, disabilities. Okay, sometimes within a class, you can see a student who never sits back. Is always in front of you. Sometimes they have vision impairment. Okay, they have vision challenges. Sometimes you will see students who are always aloof. Maybe they come to school with a certain number of problems. I think that we need to approach them to try and see what's really not going and try to address this issue. So I feel that it is the attitude of the teacher is clearly expressed in the free principle of UDL. That is, say how to engage the learners. It is about tapping on the social emotional learning. Okay, it's about really having an attitude that is caring toward the student. Okay, and when you do that, they will be open to you, and they will be ready to tell you what is not working. And you see, whenever you do it, the students become receptive. They become interested in what you're doing. So all these aspects are included in the UDL framework. That's why I highly recommend it to each and every one. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask a question, please? The
excellent,
moderator.
excellent
Yes.
answers, Ousmane.
Can I ask a question, please?
Sorry,
Yes.
can you react after? So
My hand has been up. Can I ask a question?
Yes, go.
Yes.
Okay,
Sir.
I am Johnson Ebibi from Jos in Nigeria. My question borders on the issue you raised. You say the curriculum in UDL should provide genuine learning opportunities to each learner.
Yes.
And then you went ahead to say that each learner will bring his or her strengths, background, needs, interests.
Yes.
My worry or my concern is that if each learner will be given genuine learning opportunity, and you consider the needs, the interests of all the learners at once, would you have a crisis of needs in your class?
The crisis?
Crisis of needs in your class, because they have varying needs and interests.
Yes.
So would you have a crisis of needs and interests in such a class?
Of needs or need?
Needs or interest, if you don't want to use the word need. Yes.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm not sure if I understand your question, but I would like to tell you that.
Can I go over it?
Yes.
I said, if these children must be given genuine opportunities, if the student should be provided with genuine learning opportunities, and each learner is coming with different needs, different interests, and they have to be considered. Would there be crisis of needs in such a class?
Okay, I think I understand. Well, what we have to understand here is many of these recommendations in UDL, I can say that we are doing them. We are putting into practice some of these recommendations. But the beauty in UDL is the fact that it maximizes learning. It gives a wide range, okay, of possibility. okay, in order to reach more students, to give the opportunity to more students. We're not saying that we can really solve all the problem of the student, but we can really maximize the chances of saving many students.
Yes.
Why do we say that they have different strengths? It's just because.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but unfortunately we've gone over time, and I think you were making such an important point, and I think that's unfortunately where we will have to stop for this session. But you were ending on a very important point about maximizing different student strengths and yeah, looking at that in a positive way. So thank you so much, Mr. Diallo.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
Your presentation.
So much,
Thank you,
Yes,
for the
and
great
thank you,
presentation.
Barb, for moderating.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
there's so much interest. I think this is a new concept for many people.
Definitely.
So this was a
Very
great
challenging.
introduction. Yes, and a great introduction. And I think the comments will continue in the chat, and there are many questions, but unfortunately we just don't have time. So I think we've cut into our break. So we're just going to continue on to the next session. And I believe that our presenter is here. So I will turn it over to Yanick Douyon, who is going to present next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is very interesting that what I want to present has a lot of connections to the presentation that we just saw. So I hope you stay tuned and maybe bounce some ideas, see some of the similarities as well as some of the differences. Can I share my screen?
Yes, you should be able to.
Okay, let me go to that right now then.
Perfect.
All right. And my presentation, the title that I am using here is Students-Centered Large Interactive Classes. And you see that I have put the emphasis on students in the plural. Some of the information that we just heard had to do with looking at students individually. And of course, we do want to look at students individually, but we also have classes where all students must be considered. So what I want to discuss is how to work in certain things to make them student-centered. In this picture, you see that there is a teacher-centered classroom. And while it is teacher-centered, it is large, but the interactive is spotty. There's students paying attention and students who are not really quite there. Many of the things I will say will not only piggyback on the session we just heard, but sessions we've heard through today, as well as what we heard from yesterday. So my session, as I said, is about student-centered, and I am Yanick Douyon. I am an English language fellow. Right now, I am at the University of Nouakchott, where I teach in Mauritania. And I am lucky number 13, the 13th presenter. In the US, 13 is a particularly notable number, but I don't have time to go into that. I have 3 objectives that I would like to cover today. The first is to describe students-centered teaching. And as I say, I am looking at students in the plural. So I want to discuss why we would use student-centered teaching, and then suggest and try to use in an informal way some activities that would be successful for many classes to make them student-centered. If you were to Google the term student-centered, you would find it in the singular. And in the singular, the explanation will have some idea of being individualized for each student. And I think that this may be an ideal, but in my 1,000 years of teaching, or almost 1,000, I've been teaching a very long time. It is almost impossible to individualize every class for every student every time. So I'm looking at doing things that are not always individualized for each student, but keeping the broad group of students in mind. As part of student-centered teaching, student choices are encouraged about learning, allowing students to have options. And I definitely agree that this is a good idea. When we can have student options, when students buy into the process of what they are learning, how they are learning, they are much more engaged and they're much more willing to do as much as possible to be successful. Because the goal that I am pushing for this right now is that all students will participate actively. Now, we do want to use new methods, but we're familiar with the old methods. In the old methods, people had to memorize, especially in learning a language. They had to be memorizing of grammar rules, memorizing of vocabulary terms, and this is still important. We cannot get away from it. But in the new methods, instead of memorizing everything, there's going to be a lot of use of the internet. We know that's happening, and I think this is something to be encouraged, not to remove the use of the internet, but to use it intelligently. In the old methods, students would listen and repeat. And in language class, this is necessary. I'm not saying forget about that, but we want to have the students listen and repeat and then go beyond to apply and innovate with what they have learned. Apply what they have learned so that they can go further and so that they will be able to have real life situations where the language is useful to them. In the old methods, we often had passive students, and what we want are active students. Active students are learning. Passive students, not much is happening. Another old method was learning for the test, and I know I've been guilty of this. I bet many of you have also. We want to have long-term learning. When you're using new methods, the individual learns how to teach himself or herself, and therefore learning can be much more long-term, can become a lifelong strategy. So here's a little something. Again, it's been mentioned in several other contexts, and I'm not concerned about being repetitious. It's telling you this is good. This is important. So I'm going to talk about using a method where every student must participate. And this is by asking some questions, giving an activity, making a statement, and asking them what they think. Do they agree or disagree? If they agree, they give a thumbs up. They disagree, a thumbs down. And even I go along with a shrug. But don't let them give you a little timid 1 millimeter thumbs up. Make them show you thumbs up, thumbs down, shrug. Make them active participants. So I've just given a few statements for my topic of student-centered learning. Why should we change? Students will learn better. I think this is undebatable. When students are participating actively, they will learn better. Another statement, student-centered learning is important because knowledge is less important than skill in the modern world. In language class, the skill that we want to emphasize is communication, not just repetition of rules, not being a human dictionary, but using their knowledge to apply a skill. The skill is what is the most important. And another reason I say change is it'll be easier to teach. When it is something new, it does take some time and it is not comfortable at first. But as you become more and more used to a system of student-centered learning, the teacher can kind of back off. The teacher is using less energy. It becomes easier to teach. A model of the old system, the teacher is the star, the teacher is expounding information, pushing it to the students. In student-centered learning, things are interactive, going from student to student, but the teacher is still the star. The teacher is responsible for the learning. The teacher now is involved, but there is interaction, student to student, student to teacher, teacher to student, and it's bouncing everywhere, enhancing learning for everyone. There was a previous presentation that talked about think, pair, share. And this is an activity I certainly encourage for student-centered, but I'm gonna put a little twist on it. Start off by thinking individually. And we need to let students have time to think. You know, very, very often, a teacher asks a question and boop, 2 or 3 people raise their hands. And what happens is that there are lots of others who are doing nothing. They figure, I don't even need to think because somebody else is going to answer. So give them time to think. Depending on what you are doing, the question, the activity that you have posed, maybe a half a minute, 1 or 2 minutes, but making them think individually. And then pair with one partner. Students don't want to be absolutely void of something to say, so they are going to take time to think as they become more accustomed to this system, to have something to share with a partner. Then I throw in a little extra twist, especially for large classes. And that's a square, 2 pair of students. The reason I recommend this in a large class is that now you have 4 people together. So there's more interaction, and there's also more opportunity for the individual student to know that he or she has been a contributor. He or she has been a part of what is going on. And then do share as a class. But no, every group does not have to share everything. It becomes repetitious. But next time, you need to ask some different sharers to tell the class what they have discussed. A little humor that also goes along with something we saw in a previous session. We got 2 kids here. One of them points to his dog and says, I taught Stripe how to whistle. The other one bends down near the dog and says, I don't hear him whistling. So the first kid answers, I said, I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. You know, this is happening in some classes. The teacher is talking, giving information, but when it comes time to get back information from the students, they found out teaching and learning did not both happen. For student-centered learning, group work is especially important. And we saw the cartoon earlier that goes with this Albert Einstein quote. Einstein said, everybody is a genius. Not just some of us. Everybody is a genius in some way. What we do in our classes is we only look for 1 or 2 ways for people to show their intelligence or their genius. But Einstein goes on to say, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing it is stupid. So I encourage group work. It's said that 3 to 4 is a good number to have in the classroom when they are doing group work. When you get larger numbers, 6, 8 students, some of them are not paying attention. Perhaps you'll assign roles, somebody to be a writer. Somebody else could be the speaker or the explainer of what the group has discussed. Maybe you'll have a participation manager. That participation manager would be the one to make sure everyone is on task. You could have a monitor to collect the work, to see that there is discipline that is going on, that people are not discussing the weekend. Maybe an artist, no great artwork, little stick figures are okay. We saw that in the presentation about storyboarding. But when you're using these little extra methods, it becomes more interesting, amusing, fun for the students. Again, they are engaged, they're participating. In large classes, a noise supervisor may be necessary, keep time down, to keep the noise down. Maybe a timekeeper, make sure you cover everything that is necessary in the task at hand. One task could be able to label parts of something. In the group, assigning roles. Maybe you'll ask them to label parts and one person will draw a person or a dog, a house or a tree. You could have all the members of the class doing the same drawing or different ones. Little variety makes it more interesting. Another person in the group labels the parts. Another one reports what they have done. We've been talking also about critical thinking. So maybe you're going to challenge the students when they have done these little drawings. So ask them if they've done a person or a dog. What do you have one of? What do you have two of? What is in the top part of the drawing? What is it you can do with your feet, with your hands, with your elbow? Hey, your elbow can point. Your elbow can do something. Make the class interesting. Make them become engaged. Maybe a group could quiz each other about what these different parts are. I'm talking about teaching in large classes, so classroom management is an important part. So it's necessary to have guidelines. Guidelines are necessary to make sure everyone is doing what they're supposed to be doing and everyone has followed directions. Again, I say it's a good idea to have the students involved in setting the guidelines and avoid negative guidelines. So saying to talk one at a time instead of saying, don't talk when another is speaking. And when you have guidelines, there needs to be some consequences. I don't like to call them punishments. They're simply consequences. If you have violated a guideline, you got to be prepared for the consequences. In a large class, teachers can rely on others. Relying on the students who are there is certainly possible. And it's keeping the students engaged. So instead of the teacher always being responsible for everything of doing the grades, the marks, the scores, whatever term you are used to using, have the students do some proofreading. Give them the drafts to look at. They are learning from the process, and the teacher will have a little bit less to do when there has already been one set of revision done to the work that is there. Peer teaching is almost a bonus, but an important part of student-centered learning. Students are teaching each other. Perhaps they help to explain something that is going on, helping each other to discover how to say something correctly, how to use the language. They're developing skills of being able to explain something to each other, of helping each other. So they're learning a skill of cooperation, certainly important outside of the classroom. As they're working together, they're reinforcing the learning. What I think is so cool is now and then you get that aha moment where they, oh, now I get it. Now I get it. And that's such a feeling for the teacher of satisfaction that they have done a good job. In pedagogy classes, talk about the learning pyramid, and this has to do with student retention rates. And you see that the least retention is when the teacher has had a lecture. The teacher has lectured, given an explanation, and a few days later, only 5% of what was taught has been retained. Gets a little better when students do some reading, audio-visual discussion. But as you see, the best learning for retention is when students teach each other. So encourage them in groups. They are talking to each other. They may not recognize it as formal teaching. They are teaching each other. Another activity talked about using the thumbs up, thumbs down. This is similar. Perhaps asking the students a question and asking them, is it true or is it false? If you want to go into more depth, ask why. So if it is true, stand up. If it is false, sit down. If this is not practical in your class, get your students to suggest what you could do. Perhaps if it is true, they give a high five up in the air. Maybe if it is false, they're saying, no, 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 they do not agree. Find a method that keeps the students' interest. So speaking of student-centered classes, is this true? What do you think? Attendance improves. Of course, if students are sick, they're not coming to class. But when there's a little something going on, maybe they're more motivated to attend class because of their participation. And the more often they're there, the more they're learning. True or false? There's less critical thinking. Absolutely false. Going with the idea of the peer teaching, of the cooperation, there is more critical thinking that goes on. Students become lifelong learners. Yes, this is true. And what they're learning is beyond the English that they're learning during the class for this time. They're learning that they know how to learn. So the teacher is really planting a seed of teaching the students how to be lifelong learners. One more statement, the students, not teachers, are more satisfied. I just threw this one in. I believe both the teachers and the students will be more satisfied. Getting all students involved, another few quick activities that you can do. One is asking questions for multiple choice. Then they can use their body to do numbers or letters, get them to suggest. You know, a letter A can kind of be hands overhead. Letter C, this little sideways twist. Or when they're working in a group, that they've got to agree on one answer. Here's something that would be very often used in an English class. The present progressive must have ing, ed, or s. Little higher level thinking for an advanced class. The best synonym for the word beautiful is outstanding, interesting, handsome. Some may have an argument why they prefer one instead of the other. We're not looking to make people right or wrong. We're looking to get them involved and thinking. In student-centered classes, attention is better. It's said that secondary students can focus up to 20 minutes at a time. For many of them, it's only 8 or 10 minutes. For younger students, it's a short time, so you need to present only a few ideas. Usually it's said no more than 3 important concepts should be introduced at a time. After introducing them, then this teacher needs to make sure the student secures the concept. You secure it by applying it, by connecting it to some prior knowledge, by doing an activity with it. Find a way that what you have said, and not for more than 15, 20 minutes, that there is something happening for the students to lock it in for their understanding. Another couple of things that I'd like to mention for getting some quick student involvement. There's some education classes that speak of questions as being hots and lots. The lots, lower order thinking skill. Simple question, what is an objective of today's lesson? It is recommended that you tell the students what the objective is. Better yet, post it in your classroom. Lower order thinking skill, just pulling people back to be on track. A higher order thinking skill, how can groups be assessed for their work? This is a question you have to answer if you as a teacher are working in groups. There are many different ways. If you are interested, you Google it, you're going to find plenty. So a teacher should be doing things in 10 to 15 minute increments for a presentation, and then having individuals or groups do something with that. It may be individually, in groups, by their writing, orally, or by their body. Talked about the fact that there are different learning styles. I want to throw out a quick kinesthetic student involvement method. Again, it keeps students engaged and interested, and it locks in what you're trying to teach. Writing on the back, not with a pen or pencil, of course, but using their finger. You have a student write something on the back of a fellow student. You do need to use something very short, and numbers work well. An example, what is the past tense of the verb do? So the student who is writing needs to know it, And the student who is receiving also would need to judge what is going on and make sure that they are receiving the correct answer. Very introductory classes learning numbers, write the number for 36 on the back of a fellow student. Fun activity, but it's learning and it's making it really sink in to remember. More advanced classes, name the subject of the sentence. Lions are kings of all animals. Okay. This is a little bit longer word, but they only need to really get the L to know they've got the right answer. Using games are other good ways to get student involvement. As a teacher, you decide. Will the games have competitions? Will they have rewards? I like rewards, and they can be very simple rewards. 2 examples. Whoever wins this time, whoever has fulfilled the game, whoever has participated in any way, the class could cheer their name. They take a bow. You know, they get a little bit of a kick out of showing off in front of their classmates. If it's something a little more serious, you as a teacher decide. Will you give 1 or 2 bonus points on an upcoming assignment or a test? Will you let the people who have participated in the game be leaders in a future activity? Among the games that are excellent for English classes are word games. One nice one that I've used often is a spelling bee, but putting this a little bit differently for large classes to make them more interactive, to have more participation, have each student just give 1 letter. Then they've got to listen to each other to know what's going to come next. Playing hangman.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
5 more minutes, please. 5 more minutes, please.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me.
You're welcome.
Another one that I like very much are words in a word. For example, take the word English and use the letters to make new words. It would have lie, sing, shine. I like word chains. Use the last letter of a previous word to make a new one. An example, you said bag. The next word must begin with a G like goat. After that, begin with a T. I want to speed up a little bit here. I recommend this monster book. It's free online as a PDF or as a Word document. If you just Google Monster Book of English Teaching, you'll find it. Perhaps you can give class incentives. If everyone participates, we'll get a game. If all of the groups finish their project, maybe you can invite a school official to come in and look at it. For those who have done good work, you'll send a little certificate or a note home. But remember, don't just send it for those who have the highest marks, but maybe those who are the most imaginative, those who use the most vocabulary. And one last thing I'll say in summing up, unscrambling is a fun activity. We teach that sentences must begin with a capital letter and with a period. So tell me, and I forget. Involve me, and I understand. The key takeaways I'd like you to have for today: in student-centered classes, use group activities. Require the involvement of all students. Not everything, not every time, but all of them have got to participate. They help each other, increases critical thinking. It's going to use less teacher energy. You know, it's said that the teacher should be talking less than half the time because it's student-centered, not teacher-centered. I thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the great and brilliant presentation. From the chat box, we've got 2 questions. The first one is, how do we deal with participation manager? Because it seems to be a good solution to all students focused on the task. And that question is from Husseini Hassan.
Yes, and I said a participation manager, making sure there is participation by all. You know, you're working in a group, so you just say, okay, Joe, what is your contribution? Okay, we've only got 5 minutes, so now tell me, Joan, what is your contribution? What do you think? What is the answer? So this is the kind of participation management. That's one way that it could happen.
Thank you. The other question is getting students in groups not time consuming?
It can be time consuming to do it the first time, but once you're used to it, it shouldn't take very long. You can count 1, 2, 3, 4. All the ones go together, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can say, you know, the first 3 people on this side, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. It can take a few minutes, but once you have developed the habit, then it becomes very quick. And developing the habit after taking time at the beginning will make all the other times much easier and the learning much better. So you've got to train the students in the system.
Okay, ma'am. There's a hand up. I don't know, he has to unmute himself.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My question is on peer teaching. How do you minimize noise in peer teaching? For example,
You've got to tell them it's up to you to do it. You are in control. If it becomes too loud, tell them they're going to lose this opportunity. And they will police each other because they want to do this. So they will learn to whisper.
Thank you, Ma.
It's not easy, but you can train the students to have the system you want in your class. You do this a few times, it starts to work very well.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
I think we've
What we-
about
yes.
run out of time. I don't know if we have any more questions
And
we can
that-
answer.
That's the
Yes.
last question we are taking for now. That's the last question.
I see.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
My question is this. Activities in groups. Do you think students can use L1 to involve all the group members? And how about error corrections? Can a teacher come in and start correcting some errors, pronunciation and so on, stress?
It depends
What
on
do
what
you
you're
think?
giving them to do. If you're giving them sentences that are on the board to fill in the gap, if you're asking them to conjugate a verb, you can collect the papers, you can walk around, and the teacher should be walking around and looking to see what's going on and monitoring what it is. So there's going to be some time when errors are missed, but there's going to be improvement because there has been the students helping each other to catch what is important.
How about
We're not looking for a
using home
perfect
language?
system, but we keep improving.
How about using home languages in a group?
I didn't hear you. Using
No.
what?
This is
I don't
To
hear you.
use home language, L1, first
this
language.
is the
in group.
language. This is English.
It depends on your
language.
task. The assignment that you give them can be something that's for their level. You've got to make it something they can do. They've got to be set up for success, not set up for failure. Set up for success.
Okay.
My
I
hand is
think
up.
that's-
My hand is up. Oh,
I
that's
think our
what it
time
My
is
hand
up, unfortunately.
Unfortunately,
Oh,
that was
my
the last
hand is
question.
up. That
Yes, but
wasn't
the time
last
is also
question.
up. Your hand is up and the
Ah.
time is up.
Oh,
Unfortunately,
Thank you. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
oh,
Thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
the
Thank you. Thank you.
presentation. Thank you, dear participants.
Mm.
We have come to the end of our session. Goodbye to everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Over to you, Virginia.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Yannick, for a
Thank you,
wonderful
team. Thank you.
presentation. There's so much gratitude and positive feedback in the chat. And thank you to everyone for your questions. I know we have a tight schedule, so unfortunately we don't have time for all of the questions. But so thank you again to Yannick for the presentation.
Please, can you leave?
Thank
Can
you
you leave the
to-
linking?
Oh,
Can
sorry.
you leave the link for the YouTube link?
Yes, I will share that again. It is in
All right.
the chat as well. And yes,
Okay.
and thank you, Dr. Meno, for moderating. Excellent. I'll put that link in the chat for the YouTube, for the recordings of all of our presentations. And then we have about 5 minutes until our next presentation begins. So we'll take a short break and then we will continue again right here. So don't leave the Zoom meeting and stay with us for the next presentation. Thank you, everyone.
That's me.